1, 2, 3, 4. So will you say your name and we'll tell you
Helen Davis Lane.
Say something one more time.
Good morning. How are you?
Okay, Madine, if you will tell me your address here in Cleveland, and we'll move from there.
My address is 18108 DeForest Avenue, Cleveland 44128-2660.
Okay, and were you born in Cleveland?
No, I was born in Gainesville, Texas.
I don't know where that is. Central Texas?
Northeast, right below the Oklahoma border.
Uh-huh. Were your parents from that area then too?
Born there also, mother and father.
And what did your father do for a living?
He was a worker at a, call it cotton mill.
Mm-hmm. And was that a big industry in that town?
Well, Texas produced a lot of cotton during that time, and they baled it for shipment for whatever purposes the cotton is used for.
Uh-huh. Okay. And what brought you to Cleveland? Was it you by yourself or your family, or?
By myself, but I've been a gypsy. I've lived in about 5 different states. I moved around for my education, for my work experiences, and for the almighty dollar.
Uh-huh. I've done that too. So you lived in Gainesville, Texas till?
First 19 years of my life.
Uh-huh.
I lived in, not quite 19, I'm sorry. I lived in Dallas, Texas from 1937 to 1939.
Mm-hmm.
I left to go to school of nursing in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was in school, I'm mixing up my dates, from 1938, I'm sorry, 35 to 38 I lived in Dallas. In 1938, I went to Atlanta, Georgia for a 3-year basic, they title it basic nursing course. 3 years I'm out as a professional nurse. So I was in Atlanta for the 3 years in school.
When you moved, was it your family who moved from 35 to 38 in Dallas? Your father?
My mother and father were separated, not divorced, but separated.
And but there's probably more work in Dallas, or did she have family there? Or?
I had an older sister who lived and worked there, and she wanted me to come to Dallas. She thought the larger city school would give me an educational advantage.
Mm-hmm.
So my mother and I moved. There's nobody else home but myself. I'm the younger of 6 siblings. 6 children.
So you're, and this was also in the sort of in the depth of the Depression, really, some of the toughest years of the Depression,
Right.
35 through 38. So
Right.
was your father still working in?
No, my
Gainesville?
father was disabled. He was injured on the job some years ago, but some years before that, and he hadn't worked for some time.
That must have been just what you read in the textbooks about the Depression, and then looking for work, and to
Right.
have the disability then too. Did your
Right.
mother start working?
My mother was,
in Dallas?
she worked at home. She did laundry. Sometimes she did housework.
And so did you work after school yourself while you were in the last few years
Yes,
of high
after school I worked for a husband and wife, and my job was to help prepare the evening meal, do the dishes afterwards, and then on weekends, Saturday, not Sunday, Saturday, cleaned a 5-room house. And I did that for the 2 years that I was in Dallas and finished high school. I had gone through the 10th grade in Gainesville
And then finished your last 2 years and
in
worked-
Dallas,
and
Texas.
worked for there too. And your sister that you lived with was also working at the
My
same
sister
time?
was a domestic in several homes in Dallas.
But there was a desire to put you through school and, have the family support you through that, or let's get you?
I had to support myself. I finished high school in 1937 in Dallas, Texas. I worked for a year at a grillette, like a restaurant downtown. The company was next to the famous Teich Gettinger, Neiman Marcus, and all of the people who worked at Neiman Marcus or those places had their meals at this place. So my job was to prepare all of the food stuffs for sandwiches. For instance, I cut pounds and pounds of ham, beef for hot open face sandwiches. The fallout from this was made into like a minced ham for sandwiches and stuff of that sort. So I did that for 1 year and earned $1 a day for 8 hours. 8 hours work for $1 a day.
And that put you through college?
Huh?
And that helped put you through college?
Right.
My gosh.
It was $90 a year.
And what made you decide on Atlanta for
It
college?
was the one school that I could go to and stay. There wasn't money for other things, so $90. And then after we passed our probationary period, we were given reciprocal, we weren't paid dollars, but our housing, our education for our service.
Oh, okay. So you could live relatively...
Lived in the dormitory. Our uniforms, our housing, clothing, uniform, medical care.
Oh, the uniforms too,
Yes,
right. So
everything was furnished after the first year.
So they see that you're not going to wash out in that first year, and then they'll invest in you or something?
They washed out a few,
Yeah.
but I was determined that I was going to change my life, and they weren't going to wash me out. They were fair, but there are people with personality disorders and things that don't work.
And so the first year living in the dormitory, were you working after class as well there too?
No, we worked pretty hard. Grady Memorial was a city hospital, is one of the 3 city hospitals that trained medical staff from Emory University, which is still in vogue now.
Oh, yeah.
So we were pretty busy. So by the time we were finished, since it was a city hospital, and they drug in everything off of the street,
Right.
that if we had a peep we could make after that, we were lucky.
Lucky, right, to even go
Yeah.
out or something,
Yeah.
right. Okay, so going to Atlanta was really one of the first big trips that you made, though.
Away
So you-
from home.
Yeah, away from home.
I mean, I moved around.
Right.
We had relatives in little cities around Dallas, Gainesville, Denison, Wichita Falls, Oklahoma.
But you didn't have family in Georgia or anything,
No,
right?
I went alone.
All on your own?
Alone.
Did any of your sisters come to visit you, or your mother
No.
or anything? So,
I had to learn early to survive on my own, and if I was going to get anywhere in life,
yeah.
I would have been stymied. I would have been not doing anything, having babies and what have you, and it wasn't for me. So they, I said it was, as you mentioned, height of depression. Even for my graduation, they couldn't come. Even for my senior prom, no formal dresses, no nothing. But I told myself, if I get this education, I'll walk into a store one day, choose a dress. I won't even ask the price until I'm satisfied. I've done that, and now all I do is ask, how much does that cost?
Right. She went to the first time.
But you gotta have one time in life. I'm saying that to try to give you a focus of how my personal philosophy was.
Yeah. But you definitely look to the future.
Right.
Always to the future.
I knew someday, if I stuck with it, my school was pretty reputable around the country at that time.
Is it Atlanta University?
No, it was Grady Hospital, Atlanta. They didn't have that far back. We were not connected with universities.
Oh, okay.
Like nurses are now, and people know.
But it's training in the facility.
Yes.
Okay, and
You train on the job.
so there were, I mean, you must have been reading about the beginning of the war and that Europe was involved in a war or everything at this time, or is it too, you're probably so concerned with your studies that you're not focused so much on
No,
others?
I had finished school in 41, September 41. My first job was in Petersburg, Virginia. You're going to be hopping all over the place.
Okay.
I told you I'm a gypsy. I got a job at Petersburg, at a state hospital in Petersburg, Virginia. At that time, postgraduate courses for nurses usually were in psychiatry or obstetrics. I couldn't wait to get out of obstetrics, and I always liked psychiatry, so I enrolled in a course that was given by the United States Public Health Service through the University of Virginia at Charlottesville. But our teachers came out to the state hospital. I'm going to take my hearing aid out because I hear you well enough. The thing of the postgraduate course was through the U.S. Public Health Service. At that time, the country was trying to get a lot of public health people, taking care of people all over the country.
Yeah.
And also I worked at the hospital where we had all the patients, of course, for the kinds of information and stuff we needed. And our teachers came out every week from Charlottesville, Virginia, to the hospital for our instruction. And at the end of my 9 months working there, I was granted a postgraduate course in a postgraduate degree in, certificate in psychiatric nursing through the U.S. Public Health Service.
So at this point, this is really the highest degree that you can get in this specialized field as well. So you were prepared you could go almost anywhere around the
Yes,
country.
I liked it.
Yeah.
And while there, as you were asking earlier about the war effort, Petersburg, there is Fort Lee, Virginia, that is known very well. Blackstone, Virginia was nearby. And as a young professional, we were often asked by some of the USO people in the city to go to help to entertain the military out at Fort Lee. And I got caught up in the interest of the war, and at that point we'd go to Camp Lee and sometime at Blackstone, Virginia. USO, a bunch of us would be invited down with the people that were organizing this, and we'd travel by bus out to the camps. Camp Lee was within the range of the city lines.
And they would arrange, the USO would arrange to bring you down there, or you'd pay your own bus fare?
No, we were, you know, the USO, everything was free by this time, and the USO would gather young ladies and to go to the dances and whatever entertainments that they were having out at the Camp Lee, or I think that place was called Camp Pickett, Virginia,
Okay.
in Blackstone, Virginia, located in Blackstone,
Okay,
Virginia.
so it was a camp, it probably wasn't a, you know, I mean, it's not a full fort, it might be even something temporary.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, like many of them.
Yeah.
For instance, they cleaned out as soon as Pearl Harbor occurred. They had many people that were sent from Camp Lee. Like, we had dates the next day. We went downtown, we didn't see anybody but the military police. Where's all the soldiers? Because it's a little town, you know, and you just saw people like this. We don't see anything but didn't you hear about Pearl Harbor? What's Pearl Harbor?
Yes.
You know, anyway, they shipped people off then. So I remained in Petersburg for 9 months. I tried to get into the Army there, but they had a rule. The Nursing Association had a rule. I had to belong to the Nurses State Association, which I couldn't as a black. I had to belong to the Red Cross, which I couldn't as a black. So those were the deterrents for getting in. And I thought, this is not going to get in my way. I'm going to go where I can. So I left Virginia and I went to New York to work. My first job was on Staten Island, New York there, in a tuberculosis hospital. And I worked there for like from July to November. I applied during that time to go into the military, and I was commissioned from there. We were processed at Governor's Island, New York. There were 3 ladies that from the group that was processed that went with me. They sent us by train to Jersey City, New Jersey, and from there we took the train to Fort Huachuca, Arizona, and that was my first military assignment, where I had basic training for nurses and communication, military communication, and all of the protocol that we needed to do for the proper conduct to officers and to recognize insignia of other, because we were so near Mexico and all.
That's why.
Yes, so that.
I'm curious, you knew in Staten Island that you could belong to the Red Cross and that you could join
They didn't
the
have
state
those
work-
requirements at all.
That's it.
None of those requirements. That was Virginia's segregated way of keeping us out. New
Okay.
York didn't have it.
Didn't have the request, so you didn't have to belong to the state of New York or the Red Cross.
Sign
But
that I
even
wanted
so,
to
were
go.
they segregated, or did they even prevent you from joining if you'd wanted to join the New York Red Cross?
I didn't even ask because it wasn't required.
Yeah.
You know, why
Blah, blah, blah.
bring up the devil if I didn't have to? So it wasn't even a requirement. I wanted to go in,
Yeah.
go down, get the forms,
Yeah.
sign them,
Yeah.
off you go.
Had any of your other nurse friends told you go to New York and that's how you can get in, or did you figure it out by yourself, or?
When I inquired, yes, it said some nurses that I knew were going from my school, some of the affiliate students that had gone to school with me. Oh, Madine, you want to go into the service? There's no requirement in New York. Come to New York and go.
Good, so they had spread the word
Right.
rather than getting held up in Virginia
Right.
or
Right.
What other places too.
You're right.
And because the Red Cross and the other places wouldn't allow you to join. So,
Right, and I
so
said
they-
it was
so
not a
there was-
requirement in New
yeah,
York.
Yeah, yeah. Now, you'd been out of Texas, which is certainly the Southwest, but going to Arizona, that must have looked so very different to going to Huachuca.
No, but some parts of Texas, you know, we can live on the plains and the mountains or down where the sea breezes blow.
Mhm.
You're still in beautiful Texas.
Texas, right.
So I was used to that kind of barren, you know, terrain, tumbleweeds and things, you know, find whatever you want in Texas.
So when you got there on a train, maybe some of your friends who were coming out of New York or other places were surprised at how it looked.
Barren, one
Yeah.
of my friends who lived in Baltimore told me once she got on a leave and she could go back and see a tree, she hugged the trunk. The first thing she saw, she was tired of that little stubble that she had seen, you know, places. So it was a little surprising to her, but there are many areas in Texas that has similar terrain.
Yeah, so that was
So-
common to you. I know it's just unusual for so many people who go
Yes.
there that is
And
the
different-
real West.
Right.
Yeah.
And like a number of the soldiers that we met at these places and talking about home, which people would do,
Right.
many of them were from the East, and they found Virginia different, and they also found Arizona quite different for them. They weren't used to the barrenness and everything, but it was old hat to me
Yeah.
because there's many places in Texas that's similar.
Uh-huh.
You can leave El Paso and go all the way back to Gainesville and you won't see anything but tumbleweeds, you know.
Right, right. I have seen pictures of when I think that you guys first came in. You had parades and all that sort of a thing too when you first got to Fort Huachuca, didn't you?
We had to learn to
Okay.
that, and when I say basic stuff, we had to learn, you know, the proper thing for drills, and this is all part of the Army protocol, who to salute, and the attention, and all we had military, what was it there? He's into something else, but anyway, we had military training classes. We had classes to learn, and the books and the things, who do you salute, and the insignia, what to do with the flag, what to do, and before going overseas, we were taught map reading, how to recognize certain things when it wasn't filled in. You know, they'd start with the basic, nothing but the little lumps and bumps that indicated mountains, streams, stuff like that, and then you keep building on and putting the map in with identification. And the reason for that, we were told, of course, is in case we got someplace, so they never knew how the war was going to go, what was
Right.
going to happen with nurses, where people were going to be, and they wanted us to be able to find our way, and they learned that the moss doesn't always grow on the north side of the trees, you know. I'm being funny, but
Right.
at any rate, that kind of basic stuff, how to survive if we were, and how to convert water, or how to
Oh, right.
find water, and how to look for it, you know, on branches and things if we were stranded someplace, and how to find directions and survive if we were separated from our units or what have you.
So, and you all, I'm always so surprised you're wearing dresses out there too, and you're,
At first, now when I went in 42, we had what they call relative rank. You know, we were second lieutenants, but they still had it in a category like we had, our curfew was like 1 o'clock. We had to be in the barracks.
Oh.
And then I think probably sometime in 43, it was no longer relative rank, it was full rank. You can stay out till the cows come home if you want to. So there were little things that made a difference at first. But we could also wear civilian clothes sometimes.
Oh.
We were issued duty uniforms and the uniforms for wear, but and had to learn how to put our insignias
Right.
on the proper way and to wear our thing. They were constantly telling me, ladies coach butt from left to right or right to left,
Right.
and I was always getting it mixed
Whatever.
up. But so that kind of thing, but then we had to be in uniform both off duty, and we had fatigue type clothes, not like they have now. Ours were all green, the green where they have the camouflage stuff like almost everybody you see in whatever point of service now is in that camouflage stuff, but we had just like a olive gray green.
Pants?
Yeah, we had,
Oh,
it was like a jumpsuit.
Uh-huh.
Jumpsuit.
Huh. I guess I haven't seen the women in that then. That's interesting. Did
Yeah.
you go for the type of training where it was hikes and you'd go out and stay out?
We didn't have to have that.
Okay.
We did. Now, later in the service, a number of the nurses that was trained at Fort Des Moines, Iowa, theirs was pretty much like the men. They had that. The nearest we came to that type of thing was before we went overseas. We had to go to the rifle range and learn how to crawl on our belly and not raise our head up and get shot because they had live ammunition over us. They first taught us and took us through and tell us, if you raise your head up out there, we're telling you that's live ammunition. It's going to be blown off. So don't look around for your friend. Don't do anything. And how to go under barbed wire by turning on our backs. And what the men had to do, we had some drills in that before we went overseas.
Huh. And that was at Fort Huachuca, that
Fort
rifle
Huachuca.
range that's out there.
Rifle range at Fort Huachuca. We had that, and I said the live ammunition over our head, only so many inches, and they told us don't raise up. And like the men, we had to learn to go under that barbed wire on our backs, how to go down a ditch, how to put ourselves, how to lower ourselves into the ditch and come up in case we had that kind of terrain when we were elsewhere. But that was all in preparation for overseas.
Did you know where you were going, whether you were going to the Pacific or to Europe? So
Not at that time. We didn't know. And
So
most of the
preparing.
activity was in the Pacific at that time.
Uh-huh. So you're in Fort Huachuca when the 93rd is in Fort
They were
Huachuca.
there when we came, but they left a few months afterwards. We were there the longest for the 92nd, and we left a short time before the 92nd Division left. They were all ready to go because I was dating a guy, and he thought he would be overseas before I did, but I left him.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that. So you did, obviously there were engagements at the Lakeside Club, or was it Mountain View Club or something like that, where you could go
Now,
listen to...
the Huachuca Club, I
Clubs.
don't know if I brought a picture of that with me, but
Oh,
anyway.
great. But you could go to dances and all that sort of thing. So you must...
Things was hot and lively every night. I got up and played tennis in the morning or went horseback riding in the morning, went on duty, came off in the evening, played tennis, went to the club, danced from 9 o'clock at night until 2 o'clock in the morning, skinny as could be. And they couldn't fill me up.
Uh-huh.
I ate 4 times a day, it's 5 or 6 or something.
But all that
Energy.
activity and energy
Energy,
and stuff.
mhm.
Yeah. And where were the barracks that you stayed? All the women stayed
Yeah, they had any number of barracks on the area. Fort Huachuca itself is an old, as you know, if you've been out there.
Yeah.
They originated through, I don't know how long, because one of my uncles was in World War I, and he was from there. Like when I got my orders, my mother was pretty happy. Fort Huachuca, wow. And I guess they had Army of Occupation after World War I, because he didn't come back from France until in 1921 or 22. And he was out at Fort Huachuca. So I started to say, though, it was one place. Most of the newer compound was further down from the original post.
Right.
Yeah.
And did you stay in the newer compound?
We stayed in the newer compound.
Compound,
Yeah.
Down on the.
Because the old post, as we called it, the old post, or the regular one, was closer to Huachuca Mountain, and then coming down near Highway 80 or whatever that was, I think it was Highway 80, that the newer barracks were built there.
Yeah, I've seen the like what it used to look like and the plans for it and all that sort of thing. Interesting. So, so you were in the newer barracks. I think you just press N.
N?
Yeah.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah, you were asking me about
lost,
did
but-
we drill. I had pictures of us nurses drilling. I couldn't find that.